Hi, everybody. Christy Giannoni back in week 7 for MP 570. This week, we're taking a look at a policy analysis outline in preparation for a critical assignment in week 8. As a reminder for my problem analysis, I'm taking a look at alcohol related vehicle collisions in the state of California, which not only has negative externalities of loss of life, but various economic costs at different government levels. Some of the key stakeholders are going to be lobbyist groups such as Mothers Against Drunk Driving, rideshare companies such as Uber and Lyft, and local policymakers and law enforcement who would be responsible for implementing these policies and funding for any kind of unfunded mandate, which would increase expenditures to local budgets. Alternative one, which are as is policies that are already in place. Some of the main ones are going to be coming from the California Vehicle Code. One of them establishes the blood alcohol content. This states that it is unlawful for a person who has a 0.08% or more by weight of alcohol in his or her blood to drive a vehicle. And then there's also a newer vehicle code 23152E. This is going to establish that passenger for hire situations, which are seen more frequently as a result of rideshare companies of Uber and Lyft, will have stronger fines and increases for driving under the influence. This is seen by this new law, which decreases the standard 0.08% of alcohol to 0.04 for drivers of a motor vehicle when a passenger for hire is in the vehicle at a time of offense. And then SB 1049, this was a newer state policy change. This established a new pilot program for the Department of Motor Vehicles, which states that statewide ignition device pilot programs must be required to be implemented through January of 2026. So it extended the program, and this is putting those ignition interlock devices in drivers' cars after offenses. All of these have fines and possible jail time associated with them. It's going to be dependent on the driver's prior record. The anticipated outcome is that you're deterring driving under the influence because of these consequences, and budget is going to be having expenditures associated with the cost of the law enforcement officers who are responsible for enforcing these policies, and then a revenue on the side of collecting those fines. Alternative number 2, which is going to be a less government intervention, is increased rideshare friendly city initiatives. This is going to be designated drop off and pickup areas within city limits, also possibly campaign and learning opportunities for seniors or those who are not familiar with utilizing these apps. The anticipated outcome would be less incidents of drinking and driving and higher employment rates as the utilization of these rideshare apps and services increases. Timeline for this is going to be a little bit longer and extended out 3 to 5 years. This is because this would be a fairly new concept. There's not going to be a lot of other policies to model off of this. And then there may be some infrastructure changes that needs to be budget for and CIP projects planned. That will also be associated with the budget costs for CIP projects and then long-term maintenance of any infrastructure that's needed to be implemented and any kind of contract costs that would be associated as well. This is going to be related to what government can do by privatization using some private companies to implement this policy. Taking a look at alternative 3, where we're going to see more government intervention, will be mandatory number of DUI checkpoints per city and county. So this is going to be establishing a set number of DUI checkpoints that must take place within a 12-month period. The anticipated outcome would be prevention of alcohol-related collisions because you are stopping those drivers from getting too far. So the checkpoints would be established near bars or areas that data has proven there has been an increase in collisions that are alcohol related. Timeline for this would be 12 months from the date of policy adoption. This is because DUI checkpoints are something that are very common for both county sheriffs or local city law enforcement. So this is something that they're used to doing. Not a lot of training involved, not a lot of cost associated with it as well. Budget is going to mostly be including personnel costs overtime for the individuals who are going to be conducting the DUI checkpoints, and then equipment. Often there's a command center, signage, and some other costs associated with it as well. So the policy instrument here is regulation, and while it is an unfunded mandate, this could likely lead to a tax increase or looking to seek grant funding if that's available. Here you can see the evaluation matrix and justification for policy 1, 2, and 3. We're taking a look at effectiveness, political feasibility, and administrative feasibility. Policy 1, the effectiveness is going to be the decreased number of alcohol-involved collisions by deterring with those consequences. Policy 2 is going to be the same type of decrease that we're looking for, but we're offering easily accessible ride alternatives versus that driving under the influence. And policy 3 is going to be a decrease the number of alcohol-involved collisions by proactive enforcement, stopping those drivers from getting far enough to cause a collision. Political feasibility for policy 1 is going to be great. These are already Congress approved initiatives that we're seeing implemented. For alternative 2, which is that rideshare friendly initiative, this is likely going to be fair or poor for those political feasibility. This is a new concept. Again, there's no comparatives. It may be hard to show that this can be proven effective, and there's going to be a large cost associated with the implementation and a long timeline. For policy alternative 3, this is going to be pretty good for a political feasibility, easily implemented. It's just an increase to an already established practice, and costs that are associated with it could be funded by grants or taxation. For the administrative feasibility for policy 1, again, it's good established practice, but there are challenges in the dual administration at the various levels. And then for the policy alternative 2, again, we're seeing kind of a fair, poor, new concept. It would take a lot of work to kind of see how that could be administratively effective. And then for policy alternative 3, mandatory DUI checkpoints, this is going to be great to administer. There's grant funding available. Collections of fines will cover some of the expenditures, and it's an already established practice. So we're going to look at recommended priorities based on the highest yield of positive outcomes in the shortest period of time. So that would be policy alternative 3. It's an increase in already established practices. There's data that proves that this is an effective policy, and it's a faster timeline, and there's funding options for this in comparative to the other 2 policies, one which is already established, but we're not going to make the changes to it. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I look forward to hearing yours.